Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, family can be difficult and it can be rewarding all at the same time. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. Subscribe, hit that subscribe button, subscribe, give us a listen on your podcast platform of choice. We're available over at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. Give us the thumbs up and a 5-star rating wherever you listen. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Letterboxd, and we're on the TikTok for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because, if we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please, do us that kindness and pay us a visit. On this episode, we got a real interesting one. It is a film that is in theaters right now, and it's called Juniper. And it's the story of a self-destructive teenager and when he's suspended from school and asked to look after his feisty alcoholic grandmother as a punishment. The crazy time they spend together turns his life around. And I mean, this is a very formative and sort of really fascinating coming-of-age story, and it comes from writer-director Matthew J Saville, and the film stars the iconic Charlotte Rampling, Martin Sakis, and George Ferrier. It was shot, well, let's just say somewhere down under, New Zealand specifically, but it really is a fantastic piece of cinema to come out of that country, and it's I definitely think that it marks the debut of a very strong storyteller in Matthew, because really it's a personal film, but it's got some spice to it at the same time. It's actually quite well done, and I mean, obviously a lot of that comes from the iconic Miss Charlotte Rampling, who does a fantastic job as the feisty alcoholic grandmother, as it were. It's partially a true story. It's partially inspired by things that happened in his life, but obviously turned up to 11 a little bit. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's really a fascinating kind of platonic love story between this cranky old grandmother who's got a lot of money, who's never sort of been in the life of this young teenager, and they bond and they form a real connection, and it's kind of fascinating to watch unfold. It's really a wonderful film that I cannot recommend enough. If you're in Toronto or Vancouver, which I'm pretty sure where it's playing now. Also, if you're listening in the States, I'm sure it's in various screens down there as well. But before you go check out Juniper at your local theater, please check out our conversation with Matthew J Saville, because between you and me, it is a darn good one.
How you doing?
I'm good. But I mean, just to kick it off officially, man, just thank you so much for the time today, and congrats on the film, man. I thought it was fantastic.
Oh, thank you very much. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, no, not at all. It's nice to chat and whatnot. Yeah.
Walk me through
whereabouts are you?
Oh, I'm in Toronto.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I haven't quite been there, but I always feel like Canada's a parallel, like slightly more parallel universe that's slightly more American to New Zealand or something.
Slightly, yeah. No, I mean we're definitely, it's definitely like a mild alternate dimension, to be sure. Yeah.
Like I met some Canadians and I showed them New Zealand money and they were like, "Oh my god, it's like ours, but slightly different," Anyway, yeah.
Walk me through the origin of the story, man.
Well, it basically starts with my own grandmother moving to New Zealand.
Yeah.
I never really knew her. She broke her leg. She drank close to a bottle of gin a day, had a bell, all those things. And that was kind of the origin of it. I was at boarding school, but it became its own its own thing. So my grandmother had actually been to the Spanish Civil War, but she wasn't a war journalist, and I took sort of her and mixed her with like people like Martha Gellhorn and Lee Miller, those kind of things. So I took real things and turned it into a kind of a fiction, if that makes sense. So there is things that happened to my family, and there is inspiration there, but it's its own kind of story. And I suppose I started off writing a coming of age story, and then I realized I was sort of writing a romance in a weird kind of way, a platonic romance.
Yeah.
So that's where it changed. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess the next question is like, talk me into pitching the iconic Charlotte Rampling, because I mean, you need to sort of display sort of fragility, but also severity too. I mean, when she was telling Sam to fuck off, I left the room. That's how believable it is.
It was a hustle, but it was a hustle knowing that she liked the material. So we managed to get her agent the script, and the agent read it, and I really wanted Charlotte for a bunch of specific reasons: the power that she has, also the fact that she has this kind of lived in this beauty that sort of is lived in that that has stayed with her, so it was a hustle. So we managed to get her the script. She read it and said, I like it, but I'm never coming to New Zealand. The door was open slightly, so I wrote a letter. I flew over to Paris with some gin, New Zealand gin, and tried to woo her, and managed to get her to sort of hang out with me for 3 days, and we just sort of worked on the script. And I think she likes to collaborate, so when she felt like it was going to be an authentic collaboration,
right,
that's when she kind of was like, okay, I'll do it. It took another 2 weeks. I flew back, obviously. Part of the financing revolved also around getting her. So once she said yes, we knew we had the film. So yeah.
Now, I mean, can you talk a little bit about sort of the visual language of the film? Because, I mean, on one end, it was very much like an intimate chamber piece. But, I mean, especially when you're outside with all the characters, I mean, it felt very big. It felt very expansive. It felt like it was really important for you to sort of give a display of these two different worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I was always aware of, that a lot of this film is set around this kind of room and inside this house, so it was just a matter of also giving you a chance to breathe and feel like you weren't claustrophobic. And so the lenses, we used very anamorphic lenses. We shot it in 235 classic sort of old school cinemascope, is it? And those were all sort of choices to sort of give it a kind of cinematic feel, but also to give us space to keep the other actors in the same frame, because the film's about human connection. So we could, also when you're in a big frame like that and you're on your own, you're very isolated, So there's lots of, it just kind of seemed like the right choice. The filming, the style was, there was a lot of thought into it, but it was also very organic. We moved for the light a lot. That was kind of like the main focus is getting the right light. And so our schedule kind of changed more on where the sun was during the time of day, rather than what was the most economical sort of thing to do in terms of timing. So those scenes at the end, there's a lot of thought put into finding the right. Well, obviously we had to be there. It was like 15 minutes to get those final shots in the end at a certain time of day, 2 cameras booked, all that kind of a thing. And so it was there was quite a strong collaboration between me and Marty Williams, the DOP, and we worked together in the past on a few on short films and so on.
No, I mean, I've got to ask a little bit more about the casting as well, because I mean, obviously Martin, who North American audiences are almost used to seeing him as sort of this villainous bad guy, is fantastic. And I mean, Edith was fantastic, but I mean, I've got to ask about finding George, because I mean, pairing him with someone like Charlotte, like, you've got to have an actor who can carry his own weight of the scene, or Charlotte will just inadvertently run all over him. Like, he was fantastic in this film.
Yeah. I mean, it was a leap of faith, really. We looked at about 250 young
Wow.
actors coming through, and obviously someone like that, he's close to the age of his character, so he's not like a 25-year-old playing a 17-year-old. I think he was sort of 18 at the time that we shot. So it took a long, it just took a long time, really, to find the right person, and he rose to the top. And he just, I auditioned him over self tapes,
Right.
and a Skype meeting because he wasn't in the country at the time, and he was the one. It's the only way to do it. Like those chess pieces are, like, for me, the most important thing. Those people that you put in those roles, because you just can't, like, we had 5 weeks to shoot. You just can't spend huge amounts of time getting people to the right place. Performance wise, they kind of have to be almost there. And then he had a very strong connection with Charlotte. We didn't know. I didn't know if they were going to have chemistry until we put them in front of the camera and started shooting. But we did things to build
happy accident.
their connection. Yeah. I mean, like, what did we do? I got him to write Charlotte a handwritten letter when he got the role, and he wrote that, and dear Charlotte, I'm really nervous. I'm looking forward to seeing you, blah blah blah, and you've done all these amazing films. And then he got a letter back from Charlotte saying, dear George, and I feel all these things too, and I'm looking forward to meeting you, and it's going to be an adventure. And so that kind of started something and started a trust, and he had the confidence and the vulnerability. Really, that's probably the best way to describe it. And we had like 1 day of rehearsal for this film, which isn't a huge amount, but it was kind of right. But she, in the beginning, I remember there was a few moments where she just kind of was like, no, this is what you do, and encouraged him to sort of just live it, as opposed to, perform it just and listen to her, So that was it was kind of a match made. Like, I know she really loves George, so it worked out.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that came through in the party scene. Like, obviously, there is this chaos going on around them, and then there's this such a beautiful moment where he just picks her up and they're dancing. And I mean, it's such a gorgeous moment.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit just in terms of, I guess, setting up a shot like that? Because I mean, again, you can't exactly clear out the chaos. You have to sort of exist in the middle of it. And I mean, it was such a gorgeous piece of work. And I mean, to me, that was sort of the linchpin of the relationship between these two characters.
Yeah,
it was so beautiful.
I mean, that's the sort of that they're in love moment kind of a thing. George has let go and he's sort of accepted it into her life. And I suppose for me, it's all about the idea of that party is all about, and the fire and everything. It's all about youth and life and being all around you. And then he pushes Charlotte into that. So it was really just about setting it up and capturing it and trying to keep it as authentic as possible, really. I mean, those are the parties that I grew up with. I don't know if you have that same sort of
little bit. Yeah, definitely the same kind of vibe. Yeah.
But everyone's like, they sort of drive out to the one person's house and it's
it's chaos.
The house looks a bit different in the morning. It's a bit chaos, but there's kind of it's fun. It's not there are versions of that party that where bad things happen, but there's a sense of innocence and people finding each other out, and they're all huddled together, and there was always a laugh when we cut to that scene and they're all asleep in the thing in the house in the morning, all these.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of people can kind of see, they remember their own moment of just
for sure,
falling asleep. So yeah, I mean, with all of that stuff, to be honest, the film was shot really, really, really quickly, and that scene was actually supposed to be shot out by a big bonfire in the middle of a paddock, but the day or 2 days before we shot it, there was a fire ban in Auckland, and I was like, okay, so it was no bonfire and these sort of fires around the house. And actually, to be honest, I kind of like it like that, with these sort of fires around the house, this kind of works for it, keeps it close, and yeah.
No, for sure, for sure. No, I mean, I'm curious because I mean, obviously, you've got a few acting credits under your belt. Like, has directing and storytelling, being a filmmaker, sort of always been in the offing for you, or have you sort of always wanted to kind of work on both sides of the camera?
Always wanted to work on both sides. I mean, I still do acting. I'm about to go do another film, but I'm really focused on writing and directing. And writing has kind of been being a writer is sort of the first calling for me, and I sort of stumbled into acting through writing plays, that kind of a thing, and then went to drama school and then did my master's in screenwriting, and then I started writing films that never got made, and I was like, no, well, I'm going to direct as well, and so I just started making short films and that kind of a thing, and it was I understand how actors work, and that's been very helpful in communicating, and so those skills have all sort of fed into each other. But so I just kind of think of myself as a filmmaker, a writer, director who occasionally does a little bit of acting, for fun every now and again.
No, I mean,
yeah. But if they offer me a big role, I'll take it. But not pursuing it.
I gotta ask though, like, because I mean, obviously, like you said, you've done a couple of shorts, but jumping to a feature obviously is a different beast. Like, what is the big difference in doing a feature? Is it just sort of the time and the commitment? Because I mean, obviously, from a technical standpoint, they're going to be very
well.
It's just expanded out, right?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the difference is after Juniper, the 5 weeks of Juniper, I booked myself into therapy. I never did that after a short film. It's just a lot of
I need some me time.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. I mean, I was doing the therapy during post-production, but it was just like, there's a lot of weight, and there's a sort of suddenly the money. The great thing about short films is it's like, there's the money isn't an issue. Yeah. When you make a feature every day, there's the weight of getting everything in the can. A completion bonder talks to you and says, we're really here to support you, but if you screw this up, we will fire you and take your film. That's the level of it, I suppose.
That's the untold pressure of independent filmmaking.
Yeah. So there is a huge pressure, both financial and also to just like with this film, I sort of knew like we'd get Charlotte once. So if I didn't get it right the first time, it was highly unlikely that we were going to be flying her back for pickups. And then, of course, COVID meant that there were no pickups at all. So I suppose it's like running a marathon as opposed to doing a sprint, and just making sure you've got all of the pieces and that everything's going well. But the thing is, once you get into the heart of it and it starts to work, it's really fun. You enjoy yourself. Whereas a sort of a short film, you sort of get into it and then it's over. So I don't want to say that it's all bad. It's just that it was a lot. It's a huge amount of fun. It's just also a lot of pressure, and that pressure is great because it makes you make your choices quickly. It's a good thing. But it's certainly a very different experience to a short film. Yeah. Luckily,
sure.
I had done I've directed a little bit of really, fast turnaround television in New Zealand that kind of prepped me, because if you can get through those days of 2 cameras and shooting like, I don't know, 7 minutes a day or whatever it is, it's helpful to have gone through that.
No, totally.
Though those experiences aren't so creative, but you sort of understand the pressure of it. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, you've been on some experiences as an actor that, I mean, I can imagine have been a little crazy. I mean, just something like Spartacus, or even a movie like X. Like, I'm kind of curious, like, how does sort of your days as an actor inform you as a director, as a filmmaker? Because I mean, I'm always curious to see what people learn sort of from one side of the camera when they go to the other.
Oh, there's a lot of things. I mean, I think the best thing a director can do if they want good performances, is to relax, keep the cast relaxed, And I've noticed the difference because sometimes as an actor, your job is to interpret bad direction. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Someone give you some result directing, and you're like, okay, well, you said that, but what you actually mean is you kind of want me to live the life a bit more, or whatever,
Yeah.
So having those experiences and knowing what it's like to be as an actor is very helpful. And how does it? Sorry, it's still early here, so my brain isn't. It's occasionally fogging up. So I think just being around and having those experiences in front of the camera, it's just made me feel comfortable, and sort of I suppose it's given me a language to communicate with actors, and also to understand that there are lots of different kinds of actors,
Right.
And that they work in different ways. So like Marton, he's actually I know he's the bad guy in a lot of American things, but he's actually a Kiwi. From back in the day. But he thinks really differently and works really differently to Charlotte and George. They're all different, and to sort of understand that, and to understand that there are different ways to approach them is really helpful and useful.
Absolutely.
And interestingly enough, the X cast were a lot of them that was actually shot after Juniper. So a lot of the crew were actually the crew from Juniper. It was quite weird walking onto that set. And they're all like, "What are you doing here?"
I'm working. What are you doing here?
As an actor? Yeah, but it's nice. I mean, that was the first film I did as an actor after making Juniper, and it was kind of cool to see. I don't know, just to watch the director as I was being an actor. I sort of had a different perspective of it all, and I really like the film. I think it's cool, and yeah, I can't wait. I haven't seen Pearl yet, so
it's so good. Yeah, you'll have fun
doing
with
that
for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Now, I mean, just to put a bow on this, and I mean, this is a silly question, but it's one I always like to ask.
Nice.
Like, can you think back to the younger days? Was there a movie or a performance or sort of a moment that sort of where the light bulb went off for you that made you want to get into this business?
Well, that's a funny one. It might have been. I always loved movies. Obviously, I grew up with watching Indiana Jones and all those movies, and loved them. And I always found the experience of films quite wonderful. But I think this is my dirty little secret was I was dyslexic as a kid.
Okay.
Or I still am, I guess. And I struggled to read or to get into it because it was like a embarrassing, And then I suddenly got into. I said to my dad, "If you buy this book for me, when it's a cheesy fantasy book, I'll read it. I promise," because I really like the cover,
Mm.
And I started reading, what is it? I don't know, B grade fantasy novels, and just really, really, really loved them. And then I just couldn't stop, and I'd be reading all the time. Like my friends would be on the school bus, and I'd be like absorbing these books, and I just wanted to tell stories, So I started trying to write a novel at maybe about 13 or something like that, and I've just always wanted to tell stories, and then I kind of discovered my medium, which was cinema as I moved through that. But if you want to talk about an inciting incident, it was probably just falling in love with reading books, really.
Well, I love that, man. But I mean, I'm glad you did. And I mean, I'm glad this sort of put you on this adventure because, I mean, this film, while obviously a very personal story, I mean, it's so relatable and it's so cinematic all at the same time. I mean, I really got roped in just to the entire thing that we were weaving together, man. And I think it's a beautiful piece of work. And just, I can't wait for more people to see it. But honestly, man, thank you so much for the time today. And again, congrats on the film.
Thank you, man. I really enjoyed chatting to you. So hopefully I've made sense. And
you have. No, absolutely. We're a podcast, so I encourage a little bit of rambling, but you made sense. Trust me.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, take care, and we'll I don't know, maybe we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Get up to Toronto. I'd love to see you up here one day for the festival.
I really want to be in Canada. Yeah, I really want to head up there. So next time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks again, brother. All right.
Cool, man.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.